Hey everyone, it's Mike from Air Raid Attack Podcast. Let me talk to you for just 1 minute. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain to you in 5 simple steps. Number 1, it's free. Number 2, there is creation tools that will allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Number 3, Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. Number 4, you can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. Number 5, it's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. So, how do you sign up? It's simple. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Enjoy the show. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode that we would like to call it the Air Raid Attack Podcast. I'm your host, Michael. It's been a while. Of course, a lot has gone on this week in the sports world, besides what's going on in our country, which whole different another subject, and I'm definitely not going to be any time soon talking about that, as we all know what is going on in our political world. But nonetheless, the sports world has gone insane this week. We've crowned a national champion. James Harden gets traded. The Cleveland Browns actually won a playoff game. So much more. College football expansion. Is it time? Did 2020 finally get the reasoning to expand here in the near future? And once again, the Jacksonville Jaguars may have a head coach. They may not, but, of course, a lot of teams are looking for head coaches. But anyway, you're listening to the Air Raid Attack Podcast on the Unhinged Sports Network. As always, listen to the show on the Unhinged Sports Network at unhingedsn.com. Follow the show at airraid_podcast on Twitter. Follow me on Twitter, the host, at On Air with Mike, Mike. Got a lot to talk about, especially in the college football world. The Denver Broncos getting a general manager, which I think is a perfect hire. Now, whether or not we see results, we'll see. But how can you listen to the show? Of course, listen to us on the Unhinged Sports Network. Listen and subscribe on iTunes and Google and iHeartRadio. Just to name a few. And also, if you have Alexa, just say, Alexa, listen to the Air Raid Attack Podcast, and she'll hook you up. And you can listen also on Amazon Music. But let's get down to business. And I mean business. What a game. Somewhat. The Alabama Crimson Tide flat out took it to Ohio State. Devontae Smith had a day. Boy, if he didn't, the Heisman Trophy winner made his, of course, he's going to be a first-round draft pick, hands down. Where will he fall in the top in the first round? Who knows? My personal pick, my personal opinion, definitely top 10. We'll love to see him in Denver, but we need a corner. Even if question is, will we have a 10th overall or the 9th overall pick? I don't really know. 9th or 10th. We'll see. But from what the reports are, and we'll touch more later, is Denver may be all hands on in to get a top-tier quarterback that's a veteran. Could it be Deshaun? Talk about that. Deshaun Watson. Denver Bronco, but we'll get to that in a bit. But Devontae Smith. I don't think if you were to put the entire college football teams out there, they could have stopped Devontae Smith. Devontae Smith had a game absolutely exposed, in which what I thought was true to begin with, Ohio State. But you look at his stats. 12 receptions. He's been targeted 15 times. So 3 catches or 3 passes he didn't even catch. Averaged almost 18 yards a catch. Scored 3 times and had 215 yards receiving. I know a lot of people took heat to Alabama's Twitter. Waddle shouldn't be out there, fractured ankle, so on and so forth. Hey, I give him props for even attempting, in which he was targeted 3 times. He caught it for 3 times, and he had 34 yards on a fractured ankle. I'll give him props. The kid wanted to win a national championship. If he was cleared by the doctors, he was cleared to play, and we all know he's going to play. Mac Jones for over 464 yards passing. He was sacked twice. 5 touchdowns. Averaged 46 yards a throw. My goodness. Alabama steamrolled Ohio State. It was a good first half for a little bit. Alabama struck first. Ohio State comes down. You look at, Alabama strikes first. Then Teague, I believe it was a running back from Ohio State. He struck a touchdown. Then in the second quarter, practically it was Devontae Smith. But then Teague went down there and scored. It was an actual back and forth game. Then you hit the 9-10 mark in the second quarter. Mac Jones to Harris. And then Ohio State couldn't get in the end zone. They were in fourth. They were in the red zone. They couldn't do anything from there. They had to settle for a field goal. But then that was all she wrote. From there, Alabama put it in cruise control, led them to yet another national championship. And the SEC dominated yet again. Now, of course, this was where I'm going to lead to. Of course, during the Oklahoma and Florida game, in the Cotton Bowl, in which Oklahoma won handily, you look at that game. I tweeted out. Someone mentioned, the SEC dominance. The SEC dominance in the bowl games. Well, you look at it. Florida got ripped by a team that Oklahoma probably is the second best team in the Big 12. Iowa State was a darn good team this year. But Oklahoma at the end of the year caught fire. That's when you were playing. You were rolling. But A&M struggled against North Carolina. Mississippi State had to literally punch their way through to get that victory. The SEC was lack thereof dominance. I think I tweeted out something to the degree of the SEC wasn't dominant. Alabama was dominant. And that showed again yet in the national championship game. Alabama they probably weren't, and it's a toss-up. If you want to definitely give me your feedback, follow the show. At AirRaid_podcast. Follow me on Twitter, at OnAirWithMike, and absolutely tweet me. What's better, the 2019 LSU or the 2020 Alabama? Because if you look at both, stats-wise, might go, may be in favor of LSU. I don't have the stats in front of me. But they may be in favor of LSU, and rightfully so. But this Alabama team, I think, is probably the best Alabama team I've seen in quite some time. Nick Saban, whether you hate him, whether you like him, whether you love him, is a darn good coach. And I would have no problem. And obviously, I think he's in his 70s now. But I would have no problem with my kids playing for Nick Saban. Now, whether or not that happens, we'll see. But I would have personally no reason to say, oh, I don't want him to play for him. Hey, the dude wins. Alabama wins. All they do is win. Alabama did what Alabama does. They dominated Ohio State. They showed everyone that Ohio State should have not been in the playoff, and you can definitely tweet at me on that one. Which leads me to this. The college football expansion, the 2020 season. I am so pleased that we were able to get through the 2020 season because I didn't think we would. Personally, my personal opinion. But I might have said this a few weeks back, so I might have had, or when the season started, I might have a few guests on here. But I didn't think the 2020 season was even going to be played. I thought we would have got, my prediction was OU was going to go through Texas. And I think after that, that would have been it. But they continued. The season continued. The Big Ten screwed up, and so did the Pac-12. They waited too long. You can't start in October and expect to have a full season. But, according to the Big Ten commissioner, Ohio State, they can play for a Big Ten championship, but, Wisconsin can't. So that screws over Indiana, which in the long run, you just showed what everybody does is you favor the competition, just like the Big 12 would if Oklahoma was in that position. We all know that Oklahoma, if they were in that position, would have gotten the same treatment from the Big 12 as Ohio State did from the Big 10. In the story. So you look at this year. You look at just in general. And you would have had, here's your top, even if you would have gone, this is the perfect year. Now, I don't know when they can actually expand or if they're going to, first of all. I think they need to at this point. They need to. The 2020 season proved a point that they need to expand. I don't care if it's 8. I don't care if it's 12. 16 is too much. 10 is stupid. 14 is ridiculous. I don't want to do 14 because you're going to have to. You're going to have to practically do it as the NFL did. Number 1 seed, number 2 seed gets a first round bye. Everybody else plays. You're going to have to do something to that degree. I don't know how you can work that out. 14, go for it. I'm sure there's a way. Go for it. 8, 12, that's it for me. 16, too much. 16, you're going to have to limit the non-conference, just not have a non-conference anymore, and you get your conference schedule, and you're going to have to make a run for it. But this year, you're 8. Even if you've done 8, Alabama, of course, would have been your 1. They would have played Cincinnati. Then you had Clemson at 2. They would have had Florida. Then you would have had Ohio State. They would have had Oklahoma. And then you would have had Notre Dame and Texas A&M. That was 1 through 8. Now, if you're going to go past the 8, you would have had number 9 at Georgia. 10 would have been Iowa State. 11 would have been Indiana. And then 12 would have been, I don't know. 12 would have been, I'm looking up right here. 12 would have been Coastal Carolina. Now, do I think Coastal Carolina deserves to be in the playoff? A, not really. But like in the NCAA basketball tournament, on any given day, anyone can win. On any given day, anyone. Ask Virginia, the only number one team, number one seed to lose to a 16th ranked or 16th seeded. They weren't 16th ranked, but 16th seeded. Ask Virginia. Is it possible that any team can beat anybody on any given day? See what they would have said. I bet they would have said, yeah. I mean, they might have not probably answered it because they thought you were probably trolling, but yeah, they would have probably said something. If you want to go to 16, North Carolina at 13. Northwestern at 14. BYU would have been 16. I don't know who would have been 15. I don't know. But probably, I really don't know who would have been 15. I don't think. Oh, I don't know on that one. I know I'm missing a team. It's the 15th ranked team. Might have been Oregon, might have been USC. I really don't know. But besides the point, this is the perfect time. You cannot tell me, do I think that the college football committee got it right? No, I don't think they did at all. No, I'm not sitting here saying to put Oklahoma in. I don't know. I wouldn't have said that either. Who about my four teams would have been? Alabama, of course. Clemson. I would have put Texas A&M in because their only loss was to Alabama. That's not a bad loss. I mean, if you really want to put Oklahoma in, then go for it. They're the hottest team in the country at that time. Not saying they would have competed, but they would have shone. I mean, you never know. Not saying that they would have competed with Alabama. Not saying they would have competed with Clemson, but they could have gave it a shot. Their defense is a whole lot better than years past. I can contest that. Their defense whole lot better. Ronnie Perkins off the defensive line. I think Trey Brown would have played on that one because it would have been AT&T Stadium if they would have played Alabama. But we'll see. We'll see. But do I think A&M should have been in? Me personally, I would have given it to Cincinnati. Give them a shot. They played excellent against Georgia. Extremely well against Georgia. Coach Fickle had that team played. That team was ready. But we'll never know. We will never know because the college football playoff won't let you know. I hope they do expand. I really do. I hope they do expand. Go for 8. Try it at 8. This year, Georgia would have been an odd team out. But guess what? Because I think Oklahoma beats Ohio State. The only concern would have been Spencer Rattler, of course. But he played. He learned his lesson against Texas when he was benched in the first half. And ever since then, he's played great ball. He's my prediction to win the Heisman. He's up there. Oklahoma, I know they lost some key players to the NFL draft, but that's fine. This team is deep. This team is talented. And if you have not seen that defensive line depth chart, boy, oh boy, they're stacked. and marvelous Marvin Mims. I'm telling you, this kid's special at the receiving spot. Marcus Major, I think you can hear that name a lot next year in the running back core, presuming I'm sure he'll share their snaps with Kennedy Brooks. Austin Stogner, the tight end. Don't forget Bridge. Don't forget Hazelwood in the receiving core. I think Stoops is back for one more year. The kids coming in are talented. Offensive line's going to be a lot better, even though they were really good this year. This team's talented. As long as they play to their potential, this team's going to make the playoffs. And I think this team can easily make the national championship game. Not saying they're going to win it. Because until you beat Alabama, it's Alabama's to win. But, hey, anything is possible. Literally, anything is absolutely possible with the Sooner team. But again, to end the college football note, they need to expand. I think they just it's time. I think the 2020 season shows proof that give it. Let's see the teams like Cincinnati. Let's see if Coastal Carolina wants to be in the playoff, and you're at the 12th spot. Guess what? Here's your chance. You probably play Alabama, or however you want to work that out. But here's your chance. Show them what you got. Do I think that they would have probably got steamrolled? Well, my personal opinion, I think regardless of who they would have played, I think, yeah, they would have got steamrolled. But beside the point, my point is this. Any given day, anybody can win. So, we'll see. We'll see. So, congrats to Alabama. My personal opinion, I wasn't surprised. Alabama, this team is a excellent team. I thought they were the team to beat. I didn't think I knew Notre Dame wasn't going to be much of a threat to them. I guess you want to call it that. But hey, there you have it. College football, a wrap. But don't forget, I believe the other universities, the D2s, the NCAA, the FCS, Division D2, D3, NAIA, and below, junior college, and so on and so forth. I believe they start, I think, next month to start their 2020 season, even though it's a 2021 physical year. It's the 2020 spring season. I guess is how they're going to call it. I know it's a 2020 season. And, hey, we got football in the springtime. But before we wrap up the first half of the show, the Denver Broncos, the Denver Broncos hired the general manager. Can you believe this? John Elway, a few weeks ago, steps down from the general manager position. Says, hey, practically it's time to take the reins. Now, for someone to take the reins, he's going to focus on his position, so on and so forth, which I respected. I thought maybe a few years ago, not this year. I thought would have after the 18 season that I personally thought he should have at least gave the general manager position a look over for somebody else. But no, he continued. He's drafted well, I think. Of course, Jerry Jeudy last year. You got KJ Hamler last year. Year prior, Noah Fant. Drew Lock is still wishy-washy, but Elway, in my opinion, has done well. But it's interesting what's going to happen. And I'll tell you why here I'll tell you why here in a few minutes. So the Denver Broncos hired the new general manager, George Patton, coming over from Minnesota Vikings. I like the hire. Of course, 5 things about Peyton. I guess that's how you're going to say his name. Pronounce it Peyton. George Peyton. Here's 5 things to know about the Broncos' new general manager, courtesy of DenverBroncos.com. Number 1, Peyton is a former UCLA defensive back and a high school quarterback and safety. Number 2, before the NFL, Peyton was a high school coach. That is correct. Peyton tried to make good on his pro. I was reading through this article. Peyton tried to make good on his pro football dreams and found opportunities abroad on teams in Italy and Austria. But there it is. Number 3, Peyton has worked his way from from his start as a scouting intern. He jumped to the NFL in 1997. He was the entry-level scouting position and joined the Bears as an intern. That's how he got started. He was promoted then to pro scout and then became the Chicago Bears assistant director of personnel in 2000. Dave Wannstedt, a former head coach of the Pittsburgh Panthers, and, of course, the Miami Dolphins. He's a quoted about Peyton. He's a very smart young guy with a great work ethic. Number 4, Peyton helped the Minnesota Vikings acquire 22 Pro Bowl players through draft, free agency, and trades. And if you're the Denver Broncos, in my opinion, that's the one I would love to see. And number 5, no surprise here. If you really follow Peyton, this is Peyton's first general manager job. So, like I said, I like the hire. I think he's going to do well. He's definitely going to change the culture in Denver, I believe, personally. And let's be honest, it's going to be interesting what he does with the quarterback because there's no loyalty there like it was with John and with Drew Luck. If he can make a trade to involve maybe a veteran top tier younger quarterback such as Deshaun Watson, does he go up, try to get in the top 3-ish? I think the asking price is probably going to be a little too high, but you never know. You never know from there. Could get in the top 5, could push top 3. I don't see that happening. Deshaun Watson, of course, and I was scrolling through Twitter last week, and of course, a lot of Broncos people are just making. I don't know what they were making out of it, but Deshaun Watson's following Cortland Sutton and so on and so on and so on Instagram. Well, it's Instagram. It's interesting nonetheless. It's a good talk, if anything else. But, I like what George Peyton said in his news conference today. He feels like this team is a sleeping giant. And for him, it's the right place at the right time and for this opportunity. I think he'll do well. Of course, we'll see. So a 6-year deal to George Peyton as he becomes the Denver Broncos' new general manager. And with that, we're going to end the first half of the Air Raid Attack podcast. You're listening on the Unhinged Sports Network. And a shout out to Storm Check. Are you terrified about what lurks in your system shelter? When the tornado sirens sound, do you feel prepared to spend the night in your shelter? Allow us and our team of military veterans to put your mind at ease with our services. Visit stormcheck.team and they're going to hook you up in the Oklahoma City metro area. Stay with us. We'll be back for the remaining 30 minutes of the Unhinged Sports Network here on the Unhinged Sports Network. 30 minutes of the Air Rated Tech Podcast. You're listening to the Unhinged Sports Network. We'll see you here shortly. Quick rewind before we hit to the 30-minute halftime break, if you want to call it that. Now, before we head to the bottom of the hour, quick rewind. Our first Q&A of the evening comes from a good friend of mine. He is the co-host of the Far End of the Bench podcast, in which you guys can listen to here on the Unhinged Sports Network. Jimmy Pilato, his question comes into the show after seeing what Steve Sarkisian, the former Alabama offensive coordinator, of course now he's the Texas head coach, did in Alabama. Does he worry you as the coach of Texas? Maybe not right away, in a couple of years. Great question. I think it's definitely, I'll put it here in this way. Quick answer, I think, is if he can recruit. I'm not saying the guys exactly the same guys that he did at Alabama, because of course you have to have a certain system. But if he can recruit excellent, or to the point that he can get a few, kind of like Oklahoma, you got maybe 2, you might get lucky with 3 5-stars. But if he can get 2 5-stars, quite a bit of 4-stars, even the young kids or the kids that maybe not be highly recruited, to buy into the system, I think he can be successful at Texas. The concern part for me is he was mediocre at very best at Washington. Of course, you're not going to recruit well at Washington. USC, he had some off-the-field issues that kind of contributed to him being ousted pretty quick in his second year. But I liked what he did at Alabama. But again, it's Alabama. I didn't think the SEC's defensive schemes this year, or the defensive side of the ball, was very well at all. But to answer your question, I'm on alert. It's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be fun with Lincoln Riley and Steve Sarkisian in the Red River Shootout down in Dallas. It's gonna be interesting every year how that goes. And of course, Lincoln Riley, one of the best to do it, and offensive minds, and of course, Steve Sarkisian can do the same. But I'm definitely on alert. Worried, not just yet, but we'll see how year 2 and 3 goes for Steve Sarkisian, assuming he makes it that far. Without being pulled away, from some other university or NFL team. So, definitely on alert. I'll put it that way. Stay tuned, guys. We'll be back for the last 30 minutes on the Unhinged Sports Network. You're listening to the Air Raid. Welcome back to the bottom half of the hour of the Air Raid Attack podcast on the Unhinged Sports Network. Listen to them, and listen to these 15. No, we're down to 14. Listen to the other 13 podcasters on this great network. Trust me, every show is a do not miss. Wonderful talent across the board. Definitely check them all out. Give them a follow on Twitter. All you got to go is to the unhingedsn.com is the website, and pulling it up here. Let's get you the exact handler on the Twitter, and that is at Network Unhinged. Give the other podcast a follow. Trust me, they're talented at what they do. Excellent shows on a daily basis, and you do not want to miss a single one. But in the meantime, going over again, if you're just joining in, Alabama wins the national championship. George Payton, the new general manager of the Denver Broncos, and we'll do a Q&A session. Got a few questions, not many this week, but that's perfectly fine. This one comes from a buddy of mine that I know very well, at Mr. Moody Mets. His question is, why do the Nets think Harden and Durant and maybe Kyrie works when it didn't work with Harden and Durant and Westbrook? And why didn't it work for the first time in Oklahoma City? Well, you look at it, of course, I'm very familiar with the Thunder. First of all, of course, I'm about 15 minutes away from the Chesapeake Energy Arena, but it didn't work the last time for many simple facts. I still wasn't a huge fan of Scott Brooks, even though what he did for the organization was phenomenal. Still wasn't a huge fan of um, of Scott Brooks, but you look at it, and it goes back to why I'm not a huge fan of at all of these super teams. You got Miami, you had Wade and Bosh and LeBron. And then out in LA, you got LeBron, Anthony Davis. I know I'm missing one more, but you go to these organizations, and KG, Ray Allen, and Paul Pierce in the Boston days. Some teams work, some teams doesn't. Why do I think? What was it? Why didn't think it worked in the first time Oklahoma City? Well, it didn't work first of all because you look at Westbrook and you look at Kevin Durant, even on a starting position, and you had two guys that want the ball. Westbrook, drove down to the basket. Practically he's running down your throat, and step out in front of him, you may get ran over, may go in your favor, may not go in your favor. Kevin Durant wants to do his thing. James Harden, coming off the bench as a sixth man, he wanted to do his thing. He felt, when he was traded to Houston, even though, Harden's side of the story is, well, we wanted to work with Oklahoma City because we want to stay in Oklahoma City. I don't really know, nor do I care at that point. I think Oklahoma City is going to be a 30 for 30 on what they could have had. But to answer that question, it didn't work because there's too many egos. One ball, three guys, they had to share it one way or another. Yeah, they won. But when it comes down to it, you got to have three guys that are going to agree, hey, in that final moment, regardless of who has the ball, we want to win. And with the Thunder, it was if Durant had it, he ain't going to pass it. Russell Westbrook, if he had it, he ain't sure in the heck ain't going to pass it. James Harden, if he had it was very often, but if he had it, we all know that with Houston, he ain't going to pass it. He sits there and says he's going to shave his beard when he wins the NBA championship, which I don't think is ever going to happen. You come in, into spring or into training camp, and you're overweight. You're definitely overweight. You're a little more chunky on the heavier side. Bellyache, this, that, and something else that you wanted to be traded to Philadelphia, and no, well, I want to be now traded. Period. And Brooklyn was brought up, and this was brought up, and yeah, I personally would have traded him to a team that you have no control. I thought what I said, I think Cleveland, something like that. But it's not going to work in Brooklyn. It's not going to work in Brooklyn. KD is going to do KD. As long as he doesn't get hurt by his big toe, and as long as his hangover, his toenail isn't gonna bust, he'll be all right. Kyrie is a drama queen. I don't know what else to say on that. The dude, obviously, regardless of what you listeners out there, what you guys just agree on, whether you guys are pro masks, anti masks, whatever. I'm not going to get into it. I got my personal opinion. but this ain't the place to say it. But regardless of what you guys agree or don't agree on, that's perfectly fine. But when you're out here, as the NBA has protocols on COVID-19, and just in general to try to be as much cautious, be as much careful as possible. I understand that. I get, there's a lot to this thing. Trust me. I wear a mask on a daily basis, and regardless if I like it or don't like it, it's how it's got to happen. But it's not going to work. To answer your question, Mr. Moody Mets, it's not going to work. Again, too many egos, one ball. Hope, I'll like to see Harden win a ring, but I'm not a huge fan of KD. It has nothing to do with him leaving. I wasn't really a huge fan of KD even when he was in Oklahoma City. But, so be it if they win. But it's not going to work as much as it didn't work in Oklahoma City. Why? It's pretty simple. 3 egos, 1 basketball, 1 goal, and not enough points to be to share. So we'll see how that works for James Harden and the Brooklyn Nets, and we'll see how that happens with Kyrie. I'm not even for sure if Kyrie's going to be along with the Brooklyn Nets much longer. The rate this is going, but time will tell, and we'll see. Now, there is one subject I do want to touch up on, and I don't think I mentioned it in the tweet. And again, follow the show on Twitter at airraid_podcast. Join the show. By all means, I'm perfectly fine with you guys, following the show, tweeting me, hey, I disagree with you on whatever it is. Hey, I enjoy that stuff. So definitely give me a follow on both my personal one, On Air with Mike, and then network Unhinged for the Unhinged Sports Network. I can barely talk today. And then the show at airraid_podcast. But here's where I want to touch. And I saw this, and I'm not going to say on somebody's page. And if the person listens, he's going to know who he is. And I'm not taking a personal stab at the person that shared this. I'm not, by any means. Let's see if I can find it. Pull him up real quick. But here's, if I can, hopefully, let's see. Hope you guys hope your 2021 is going off to a good start. I know a lot of people are a little bummed because they thought that we were going to not wear a mask. But, hey, we're still there doing that. Here we go. So, here's what someone shared, and hopefully they still have it. But if not, okay, here we go. So here's what I want to touch up on. And this is very controversial. I know a lot of people, I've read the comments on this person's page. I get it. So, George Hill. Newly acquired over the offseason by the Oklahoma City Thunder. They interviewed him. I want to say it was sometime, maybe a few days ago. Let's just say Tuesday. I think it was Tuesday. I think it was actually Monday, but I think the tweet came out on Tuesday. But anyway, it doesn't matter. But on the Hoops Central on Twitter, they interviewed George Hill. And the topic was the NBA, of course, with the COVID-19 protocols. Here's what George Hill says, and I quote, "I'm a grown man, so I'm going to do what I want to do. If I want to go see my family, I'm going to go see my family. They can't tell me what I'm going to do. If it's that serious, maybe we should not be playing basketball, end quote. The comments I read is very interesting. And like I say, this is a very controversial subject because nowadays the masks are political, which I don't talk politics regardless. I don't care. Whatever. That's what you guys like. Cool. Power to you. But here's where I stand on that subject. Because somebody asked me, what do you think? Personally, again, as far as I know, and whatever happens once I say this, but as far as I know, we live in a country we can say what we want to say. Now, again, I don't condone rioting. I don't condone storming the U.S. Capitol. I thought that was ridiculous, to be honest. Regardless of what you thought it was rigged or not rigged. But I absolutely agree with George Hill, and here's why. And I've had COVID. My youngest son had COVID, but it's a serious issue. Very serious, I still think. Not to, I say as long as you take your precautions, you're going to be okay. My personal opinion. But I think George Hill is right in this case. And here's why. Because I still think, me personally, I think the NBA should not be playing. I still personally think in the NFL, they squeezed by. College football, I was a little leery. I'm not going to lie, towards the end. I don't think they're going to get much. I don't think they're going to get the conference championship games in. I don't think they're going to get the bowl games in. A lot of bowl games didn't even get canceled. But my personal thing is let us live our lives, but let's be cautious. Wear your masks, regardless of what you guys think. Hopefully, you guys are washing your hands regardless, I hope. But anyway, I'm getting off subject. The point of the matter is this. He has a point. I respect his quote. I agree with it and I respect it. Do I think it's a serious matter? To the extent how serious you guys want to make this, that's your take. But he's got a good point. I think the NBA should not be playing. That's my personal opinion. I like sports. But I'm glad to see basketball back. I'm glad that it's sports, but I see where he's coming from. I'll put it that way. Because what George Hill is saying to us as fans, to the media, and everybody else that wants to get, pitching their 2 cents, is you guys are out here preaching it's a serious issue. It's a serious issue. Well, if it's a serious issue as what you guys are saying, then why are we playing basketball? Why are we playing hockey? Why are we playing baseball? Why are we playing football? Why are we playing soon-to-be soccer? Lacrosse is going to be coming back up here soon. The WWE, AEW. Well, Michael, you're just retarded. You don't know, you're just whatever. Well, here's the deal. What I do for my full-time job, I'm potentially exposed on a daily basis. Yesterday, for example, walked into one of my accounts. I already knew what was ahead of me. Double masked, put my hands in my pockets, and hope for the best. It's a serious issue. Just take precautions. We're going to be okay. We're going to be okay. Let's just continue to fight this. We'll be okay. But anyway, NFL playoffs. Finish this off. NFL playoffs, and what a weekend. Now, if you may know, I'm the co-host of the Time to BS podcast with Dan. Definitely check that podcast out. It's, regardless if I'm on there, Dan knows his stuff. And trust me, we talked about it. Dan is bummed because his Seattle Seahawks were ousted. So, recap quickly. The Bills win the playoff game for the first time since 1995. Defeats the Colts 27-24. The Rams are the third. The Rams beat the Seahawks 30-20. The Seahawks are the third home playoff team loss in team history, and the second one was to the Rams actually. On the nightcap on Saturday, the Buccaneers defeated the football team of Washington. Tom Brady, 31 career playoff wins, most by a quarterback since 1950. And last but not least, the Ravens on Sunday beat the Titans 20-13. Baltimore 6-0 in wild card games. On the what I would call the mid-afternoon cap, the Saints dominated the Bears 21-9. It's the fewest points allowed in the playoff game in team history for the New Orleans Saints. And last but not least, on the nightcap, the Browns defeated the Steelers 48-37. It's the Cleveland Browns' first playoff win since 1994, and my boy Baker Mayfield had a day. So, where do we stand? Well, I didn't do so well in the wild card, so hope I got to redeem myself here. So we're looking at the divisional round, which leads to the championship weekend next week. The Rams travel to the Packers. Green Bay's number one scoring offense against the Rams' number one scoring defense. I think it's going to be very, very interesting nonetheless. Key thing on this one is Aaron Donald healthy. Can he go the full 60 minutes? Is Jared Goff going to be cleared enough to play? You know, I thought he looked pretty decent against the Seahawks, even with a broken thumb on his throwing finger nonetheless. But we'll see. The Packers are very questionable. You know, you got Aaron Rodgers who can one day light you up, or one day you can light him up. This is going to be a very good game. I'm looking forward to it. My dad's a diehard Rams fan all the way back when they were originally in the LA Metro. But I think the Packers take care of business on that game. Ravens, Bills. The Bills are 11-3 in home playoff games in team history. And, I think – oh, boy. This is interesting. This is very interesting. I like what the Bills are doing. They're Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs. The list goes on and on. The defense can play. I'm going upset Baltimore. I think Baltimore takes care of the Bills. It's going to be a good one, though. I'm actually looking forward to it. Browns and Chiefs. Andy Reid, 7-0 again, career record as head coach versus Cleveland. I think he goes to 8-0. As much as I love the Browns and what they did against Pittsburgh, and I thought they've had a phenomenal season just in general, I think the Chiefs are just too much for the Browns. So I think the Chiefs take care of business on that. And then on Sunday, the nightcap, 42-year-old Drew Brees, 43-year-old Tom Brady, 85 years combined in these two guys. I believe, as far as I know, it's the oldest in two quarterbacks, I think. At this rate, I don't know. New Orleans winning 5 straight against Tampa Bay. You got your sports conspiracist theories out there. Tom Brady's going to win because it's the NFL. The NFL loves Tom Brady. Well, Drew Brees, it's his last year. Can he go out like Peyton Manning went out in Super Bowl 50 with Denver? Personally, I don't think Ivy's going to win the Super Bowl, to be honest. But nonetheless, it's going to be an interesting game. Another one I'm looking forward to. But I missed full 100% fan capacity because the Superdome in New Orleans, it will be rocking. I think I'm going Bucks here. Even though this is going to be a good one. I'll go upset Bucks. I think the Bucks will go to Green Bay for the NFC Championship game. Got the Ravens going to Kansas City for the AFC Championship game. That's my prediction. We'll find out. Of course, next week we'll talk championship weekend. We'll talk, hopefully, a lot of head coaching gets hired in, and we will recap as we push towards, baseball's starting soon? Hockey's underway, so it's going to be interesting nonetheless, but to keep you guys afloat, a lot behind the scenes going on, so definitely stay tuned to that. The only way to stay tuned is listen on the Unhinged Sports Network. Listen on the iTunes, Google, Amazon, so on and so forth. Wherever you get your platform or your podcast from, listen and download, subscribe, and like, whatever. I don't understand the whole. I have never reviewed a podcast which means like 2 stars, 3 stars, 4. I don't know. Never done that, but do it if you want to. Nonetheless, great to be back getting these podcasts going the last few weeks to end the 2020 year. Holidays has been well. Hope your holidays were even better. Listen to us every Friday on the Unhinged Sports Network. Follow the show at airraid_podcast. My personal Twitter, On Air with Mike, MIKE. You guys have a wonderful and safe week and weekend. Let's finish out strong. Let's enjoy some football. Stay safe. Wear your masks. And we will catch you all next week. See ya.